Hi. This I have to get GarageBand up as well. So hang with me. I am new. Oh, my chicken's boiling over. Uh-oh. Okay. Hi. Hi. uh, it's going to take a minute for me to get used to. Um, I am, for those of you who are just listening, trying to put my seat down, on audio. I'm also doing video, which we haven't done in months. So this is, I don't like being on video at all, but I think we are missing out on people who like to watch a podcast rather than just listen to it. So while I am doing or attempting to do this one by myself, we'll see if this actually makes it out. Yeah, I figured I'll try and do video. And if it's absolutely awful, then if you're hearing this and it's awful, then it's not published. I guess that's kind of the beauty of having kind of complete control over this. Anyways, I'm going to try to be not awkward and not mess with my hair or worry about how I'm looking. I guess I can't because I'm actually going to record or try and record an actual episode by myself, not crying into the microphone about my recent breakup. If you have missed those previous two episodes, then uh, there's Indiana. That's going to be the problem with this is what? Oh, come here. You want to say hi? Oh, hello. There you go. Say hi. Yeah. She's going to be a nightmare during this, but I'm going to try. Um, let's see. Where am I going? Oh, yeah. If you have been listening to the past 2 weeks, I haven't put out a new true crime. I apologize. I have been going through the worst heartache that I have ever gone through. Um, and I am not handling it well. I have chosen to pick up the microphone and talk into the abyss or talk to whoever's listening, I guess, for the past 2 weeks. And it helped. It really helped. It made me feel a lot better. I feel like it's helping me process. I also heard from Mark, who listened to a little bit of the first one, and he has requested that I take them down. Um, and I am very, very torn about that. So if you don't see episodes about a breakup anymore, then I guess I took them down. And if you do, then I still am undecided because he feels like they're too private and too personal, and people, we both have people, colleagues, family, friends that listen, and he's a much more private person than I am, as most people are. um, so I, out of respect for him, which I have still a great deal of, I may take them down until this is not so fresh. And until we see what happens. And I say that because I am still very hopeful that we will figure this out. And with some space and work, we will be back together. Okay. It is so much easier to sit down and not have a camera on and do this, and also to just kind of do it without knowing if I'm going to publish it or not, which I guess I still don't have to publish this. I still might not, but the past two episodes just where I just kind of released all of my innermost thoughts and feelings were really easy to do. I mean, emotionally treacherous and just awful, fucking terrible. But I just talked, and I didn't really think beyond just spewing my feelings out. So it was easier than this. This I'm trying now. Now I'm trying to be cautious about what I'm saying and not say too much about the breakup. Because I don't want to just, this is not a breakup podcast or a relationship podcast. And I don't want to turn away all of our very lovely and loyal listeners who are here for the true crime. And I don't want to, secondary to that, I want to begrudgingly take Mark's feelings into consideration. I say begrudgingly only because part of me feels like he dumped me, and I am trying to get through this the best way I can. I did not want to be dumped. I do not want to be broken up. I did not want him to move out. I wish we could have found a different way than something so drastic. And I didn't really have a choice in that. So now I feel like how I process this is my choice. And I am not the same as Mark. I'm, I guess most people, a lot of people kind of turn inward and self-reflect and keep that to themselves. And I have this platform that I don't know. It just felt right to put out those episodes, and obviously to be continuing to talk about it now. And it is helping me. So on that hand, I want to, and I've gotten such kind, supportive, encouraging words and advice and thoughts, and just really an outpouring of kindness. So for everyone who has reached out, thank you. And even if you haven't reached out, but you've just been silently listening and putting up with my emotional roller coaster, thank you to you as well. And then the other part of me still really hopes that this is fixable and mendable, and I have to believe that this is not the end for us. And so in that regard, I don't want to do anything that's going to derail that or make that harder or push Mark away or disrespect him. I would never want to do that. So there's just completely an unfiltered view into where my head's at right now. And I'm undecided, so we'll see. If anyone has any brilliant advice or thoughts, please send them my way. And I thought that rather than continuing on with the breakup stuff, since I don't know if I will keep that up or kind of what's going to happen with it, I thought I would attempt to do a little true crime by myself, and we will see how this goes. Jenna is not, as far as I know, as far as us speaking the other day, Jenna's not like gone. She's not off the podcast. We will be back doing this. It has just been a difficult and emotional time. And I think I said this on one of the previous breakup things, that because Mark is her husband's best friend, is her very good friend, has been close with all of us, and is essentially family for like 15 years now. It complicates things, and it makes it tough to navigate. And I don't want her to be put in any kind of more difficult of a position than she's already in with all of this. So I am just going to attempt to do this by myself for a very brief interim right now, while the rest of this kind of, where where the chips fall where they may, I guess. Sorry, I feel like I'm not speaking as well because I'm so hyper aware of this camera in my face, which is maybe a sign that I'm not ready to be on camera yet. I mean, the podcast has only been out for a year, so you'd think by now I would be comfortable with it, but I'm not quite. So, but I'm going to keep going because fuck it, why not? Okay. There's such a large part of me that wants to just break up stuff and kind of talk about where I was at emotionally today and just every step of this because it's very helpful, but it is also not necessarily the way to go. So I'm going to jump into, so this is, I say that like a little true crime because this is not a news story. This is an update on a story that we did months and months ago. I actually do not have the date in front of me. I think it was in June, around June, that we did this one because it was right after it happened. So this was the story of Moriah Wilson, the murder of Moriah Wilson, who was a professional cyclist. And she was murdered in Austin, Texas in May of 2022, so just last year. And the way I described this back at the time was a love triangle story gone wrong, filled with passion, jealousy, an international manhunt, a little bit of stalking, and ultimately a murder. So I'm going to just take us back through the original story a little bit because it's been a while and even I didn't remember all of the details. So I'm going to kind of recap that, and then I will give you the updates. If you totally remember this story, then you might want to fast forward. This will be repetitive for you, but for anyone who hasn't heard this one, our new listeners, or anybody who doesn't have, you know, a memory that remembers a murder story from months ago, then this recap will be helpful. So, Moriah was on a real roll with her cycling career. She had won nearly 10 races between 2021 and 2022. And one of the most recent races that she won was the 137-mile Belgian waffle ride in San Diego. And she won that by a whopping 25 minutes over the person who took second place, which was a huge, huge win for her. It was also, unfortunately, her last race that she would ever compete in. And so after that race, she was in Austin for another race. She was staying with a good friend of hers named Caitlin Cash. And she was there for a race, but she was also catching up with other friends in the cycling community who were also in town for the race. And if you remember, there was one person in particular that she connected with, and that was Colin Strickland. He was also a fellow professional cyclist. They had a brief kind of romantic interlude at some point, but it didn't last long. It ended easily, no problems, and they remained friendly afterwards. So on the afternoon of May 11th, it was Moriah's second night in Austin. She texted Caitlin Cash, the friend that she was staying with at her house, that she was going to go swimming with Colin. And they did go swimming. They went to a place called Deep Eddy Public Pools. And then they went for burgers at a place called Pool Burger. Lots of pool themes. And this was also confirmed by security footage. So at 8:16, security footage shows that Moriah and Colin were leaving Pool Burger on his motorcycle, and that Colin dropped her off back at her friend Caitlin's house around 8:36 p.m. that night. He didn't go inside, and he didn't notice. He later said to police that he didn't notice anything was amiss when he dropped her off. Later that evening, Caitlin Cash arrived home and found Moriah laying in a pool of blood. She was unconscious and she had multiple bullet wounds. So Caitlin called 911. Officers arrived at 9:56 p.m. and Moriah was pronounced dead on the scene at 10:10 p.m. The investigation that followed this, you know, of course, initially led in a bunch of different directions, but first and foremost, police are going to start with A, people close to Moriah, and B, the last people who saw her alive, which was Colin. So Authorities did search Colin's house. They found 2 9mm handguns, which Colin told the detectives that he had bought earlier that year in December and January. One was a Springfield Armory for himself, and then he bought a Sig Sauer for his girlfriend, Caitlin Armstrong. So now this is the second Caitlin. If you did listen to this story, I really tried to emphasize in the original telling of it that, like, there's two Caitlins. That can get confusing. Caitlin Cash is Mariah's friend who she was staying with. Her name is spelled with a C. And Caitlin Armstrong, her name is spelled with a K, and that is Colin's girlfriend at the time that this happened. They also found at Colin and Caitlin's house a 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a very elaborate bike rack, which is the exact vehicle that was captured on one of the neighbors' surveillance cameras, shown arriving and briefly stopping in front of Caitlin Cash's home around 8:37 p.m. that night that Moriah was out with Colin and got dropped off. The car wasn't Colin's, though, is what police determined. The car, that Jeep Grand Cherokee seen on the security footage of a neighbor's house, was actually Caitlin Armstrong's, his girlfriend. Caitlin, if you recall, and I guess I don't need to keep saying if you recall, because if you did, I wouldn't be saying all of this, but Caitlin was also previously a competitive cycler. She occasionally participated in cycling events with Colin, but she mostly worked as a yoga teacher. And despite Colin and Caitlin having a brief split in the fall of 2021, the two of them had been in a long-term romantic relationship for several years at this point. They also weren't just involved in a romantic relationship, they were also business partners. And in a business relationship, they were working to start a company. Well, they started a company called Wheelhouse Mobile, and the goal of that was to design and build vintage trailers. But if you recall that I said 5 minutes ago, which I'm sure you do recall, Colin wasn't really a one-woman kind of man, at least when it came to Moriah, because it was later determined that he had engaged in that romantic kind of tryst with Moriah, brief as it was, but he was still dating Caitlin while that happened. So the police had an initial theory, and their initial theory was that Caitlin found out about this romantic affair between them and killed Moriah in a fit of kind of jealous rage. Police believed that Caitlin may have located the fact that Colin and Moriah were together using a cycling app that I guess everybody in this kind of cycling community used. It was called Strava. And when, when your location is enabled, anybody else on the app can kind of see where you are. I kind of equate it to like Snapchat. If you have your location on, any of your Snapchat friends can see where you are, which is super creepy. Or I guess like Find My Friends. All things that I am super not interested in and against and would never do, unless maybe I had kids. I could understand doing it if you have like teenagers or something like that. So that they thought that maybe that's how Caitlin kind of tracked them down and found that they were together swimming. Obviously, Colin hadn't told Caitlin that he was going out with Moriah, who I believe, if I recall correctly, Caitlin had kind of caught in wind of this potential affair that he had, but it was never confirmed. They never broke up over it. But she was suspicious. So he didn't tell her that he was going out with Moriah, which is a problem right there. I mean, I am clearly at the moment not the poster child for good relationships, but if I was going out with someone who I had a previous romantic kind of entanglement or engagement with, I would definitely tell Mark or discuss it with him before going. And I would never just go and not say anything. That just feels like you're hiding something, which I think is what Colin was doing.